Hello and welcome to another edition of On the Road with MTD CNC. This is the program where we talk about what we've been up to in the last 7 days and where we're going in the days to come. Every Sunday night, released on social media channels. Today, I'm hosting this one. I'm Paul Jones, the founder of MTD CNC, and I'm joined by Giovanni Albanese, who is also a proud member of our team. Gio, you had a good weekend?
It's been very good, thank you, Paul. What about yourself, my friend?
Yeah, pretty good. Before we start talking about where we went last week for our work and stuff, what about what you've been up to over the weekend? Been enjoying the light sunshine, the light winds?
It's been nice, kind of the nicer weather, coming and spending a bit of time outside with the kids and trying to start getting fit again and shift some of them COVID pounds. And by the way, Mr. Jones, it hasn't gone unnoticed. You've certainly lost some pounds, and I'm not talking about from your wallet.
In my pocket. Yeah, well, I have. I got my Peloton bike. I'm still going hammer and tong on that pretty much every day. I find it so convenient to be able to. I wasn't sure when I first purchased it because I know they're pretty expensive, but I really needed a form of exercise that I could quickly do, execute it, get off and get back into working, and it's been brilliant for me. It really has. That coupled with changing my diet slightly and not being able to go to restaurants, which I know we can now, but it's just too cold at the moment, isn't it? Have you been out? Have you been outside?
I haven't. I think that's probably the thing that I've missed the most is going for meals at the weekend, and we haven't been out yet. Like you say, it's been a little bit too cold. I'm looking forward to go for a pint with my friends, which we're doing that on the 24th. Of April, so we're all meeting up outside and having a drink. So that's probably going to be my first outing, and to be honest, I can't bloody wait.
Yeah, well, I've been seeing a lot of these social media memes where you're seeing people sitting outside and it's tipping down with rain and it's all going in their wine and their pasta and all the rest of it. And I must admit, I said to my wife over the weekend, come on, let's just go out and enjoy. And go for something to eat, but you go out, you sit down, unless you've got heaters all around you, it's just too cold. And I feel sorry for the hospitality industry because I know they really wanted to use this outdoor as a bit of a kickstart, but roll on May the 17th, I think it is, then we can all sit inside, but hopefully be hot and sunny by then. Digressing slightly, of course, but what we do in this show is we talk about the things we've been doing over the last 7 days and what's going to be happening and where we're going as a team in the days to come. So let's talk about last week. It was a busy week at MTD, Gio. I mean, you were at the Citizen Open House on Citizen Live event we did on Monday for preparation and then Tuesday for the actual show, which I have to say, I watched myself away from any crowds and really did try and digest the information. I found it really interesting. We'll talk about what you were showing there. We also had crews out at Ward High Tech this week. We'll talk about the things that Chloe and Lindsay were doing there. You were also at Napier with Mark as well, talking about Grob and various other things that they're up to. Pretty interesting applications. I myself was at Ashby Engineering as well, where we looked at certainly some brilliant technology that they've invested in, a company that spent £1 million in the last year on new machinery. So what did you pick up from the Citizen Open House? Or what do I keep calling it? Citizen Live event. I suppose it is, in a similar vein, promoting a new technology. What did you learn, G-Man?
Well, I think it was a brilliant event for kind of getting back out again and meeting people. I think that, it finally feels like we're kind of coming out the other side. And fingers crossed I'm correct. But the most interesting thing about the Citizen Live for me was their new Citizen Miano ANX 42 SYY. Now, this was a machine that was designed from the ground up to fit into the UK market. And it's a fixed head machine. So lathe, shall I say? But when you think of a fixed head lathe, you think that the main and the second spindle are both fixed, but it's not the case in this particular scenario. So the main spindle is fixed. The second spindle moves on the x-axis. And it doesn't only just move in the x-axis, but it also moves in the z-axis. So what this means is with the two turrets, it means that you can superimpose machine. And what that means is using the second spindle as well, you can actually cut 3 faces of a part all in one hit, which ultimately increases your productivity. With this particular model, 42mm bar capacity, it opens up new markets as well. You can attach a long bar feeder to it, automate it quite simply. I mean, it's the simplest form of automation with a bar feeder. And it's a fantastic product that really is extremely productive, and it's also got the milling capability as well on the turrets.
Has it got 2 y-axis on those turrets?
Yes, it has. Yes, yeah. And I think they've got extra stroke on them y-axis, and you wouldn't believe the actual footprint of the machine for something that's got such capabilities and kind of capacity in regards to the size of the parts that you can manufacture on it, whether it be a turn part or prismatic part. The footprint is very small, and you know, it's a really well designed piece of equipment, and I can see it doing really well.
That second spindle though, so when you say it moves in the X and the Z, what happens then normally with a twin spindle machine is it will only move in the Z, doesn't it? It doesn't have that X-axis stroke. Is that correct?
If it was,
I think I'm right in saying that, because what you're saying is it can move up and down as well.
Yeah, so in the if you were looking at a traditional twin spindle lathe, twin turret, fixed head lathe, both your main and your second spindle would be fixed. So the turret, both turrets, so say if you had a bottom turret and a top turret, both turrets could move to both spindles, but you could only be cutting either one turret on each part or 2 turrets on one part, but ultimately you could only be cutting twice. But what's happening with this particular machine tool, it's really, really clever. With having that second spindle moving in the Z, so it can actually, so you imagine, for example, both of your turrets are working on the main spindle with a front turning tool. You could have a back turning tool positioned on the same turret, and you'd program your second spindle to hit the back turning tool whilst it's cutting the front component. So effectively,
will it have to move twice as fast?
It would have to move in conjunction with how fast that turret is moving. So the feed rate of the turret would determine the feed rate of the second spindle, if that makes sense. It's hard to explain on a podcast.
And that's what superimposed machining is, isn't it?
It's exactly that. So you're actually cutting 3 faces all at once. You know, I think that it's it could be a game changer, because you think, Paul, you know, you're getting an extra face for free. So the product, when you think of productivity, isn't it taking it to the next level?
It's really ironic or coincidental. Coincidental probably is the better word to use. At Ashby Engineering, where I was on Thursday, they had a Belia machine, the new Belia machine, twin turret, 2 y-axis, twin spindle, but it had the same. It had this ability for the X-axis to move and do exactly what you're talking about, superimpose machining. And also with that, what it allowed the customer to do was really create the machining of the part in the way that made it as quick as possible. So it's all about balancing the elements, isn't it? Making sure that you can get these 3 cuts at once to reduce that cycle time. But you can also be more flexible if that spindle's moving, because it can move out of the way. So it can give you more scope to manoeuvre your turrets, so less potential collision issues if you want to do longer parts as well. These are things that need to be considered too, and they can achieve.
Yeah, I think that we've mentioned it before on MTD videos and podcasts. Machine tools, in our opinion, they can only go so far mechanically, and all of the major developments now are coming through software. And how when you look inside these type of machines where you superimpose machining, it can be quite daunting for someone that's never done something like this before, because it looks quite complicated. But they've simplified it through the programming, through the software. So they break the program down into 3 bits effectively, Paul. So you're programming first on your first turret, a simple kind of, you imagine just turning a shaft. You program your second turret, just turning a shaft, and you program your third, and then it all just synchronizes and comes together. It's got the once you've set your tool length offsets on all of the different tools that you're using on your turrets, it knows where everything is. So, you know, collisions will always happen, but with this new software, it's kind of, you know, making it less likely.
Yeah. Superimposed machining is, like I say, there's 2 machines that we've looked at then this week that have been...
I didn't realise that you'd seen one.
Yeah,
there, Paul.
I mean, and there's a lot more other things about that Belia machine, which we'll touch on in a minute. But the event itself, that live event we did, it can be found on YouTube or on the MTD CNC website. It's just over an hour in length. There's lots of items within it. We heard from Edward James about Citizens' position at the moment in the market and how good things are for them coming out of the pandemic. We also heard from a few of their customers. We also heard quite an interesting piece on finance, which I thought was really good, about some of the flexible options available. But not only that, the government incentives, which have played a real part, haven't they, in kind of boosting manufacturing in recent months with what's been going on. Let's come on to, I know on Wednesday this week we were at Ward High Tech. Lindsay and Chloe were at Ward High Tech, where they're having some great success with their commercial options on their machines. In fact, we were there to film machines leaving the warehouse, the factory, the showroom, whatever you want to call it. I think they delivered 7 machines in a day.
Wow.
7 machines.
I think that really shows that the market is definitely picking up. I mean, they've always been proud of the fact that they hold a lot of stock, which is all paid for and ready to go. And obviously that they're kind of helping out their clients by doing so, aren't they? And what machines did they sell?
I know that it was Dali machines, Huachon machines. Wow. But what's fascinating in this is there's also the flip side of this that I'm hearing from quite a few machine tool suppliers that we had engagements planned with to film certain machines, that they've not arrived yet. They've not arrived. They're held up with all of what's been going on with Brexit. So there are companies that have got stock, and there are companies that are waiting for their stock to come in. And I think, I'm not going to dismiss the fact that the Huachon and the Dali machines are popular machines here and around the world, but having kit there ready to go must be, must give you a fantastic advantage, especially with this new super deduction scheme that's come into play from April the 1st. People ready to go, press buttons on that haven't invested in the last year or so, they're ready to do it. So companies that have got kit, and I think Ward High Tech really wanted to get that message out, and I'm sure Lindsay and Chloe would have done a good job.
I think they did do a good job. I've seen some of the videos that they did. I think that investment now and getting these spindles and machine tools out into the market and just reporting on all these positive stories, it is fantastic. I think that the government trying to incentivise people to invest and to give people ultimately more confidence to invest, and that's the key, because I think that people have had the capacity and the work to invest, and they knew that they needed to invest, but they were just uncertain of what was going on. And I think we're coming out of this awful time that we've been through, and I think that there seems to be a really positive vibe out there at the minute, Paul.
Yeah. Just aside of manufacturing, house prices. We have this conversation all the time. Going up or down? Because I know
I think that, and this is just my opinion, I honestly believe that they are going to plummet soon. I think that the house price market is being held up in a false economy, if you like. That they've given stamp duty out, and what that's created is a lot of buyers have bought larger properties because they haven't got to pay the stamp duties on them properties, and subsequently some of the lower houses as well, first time buyers. It's kept the house the house market moving, and obviously the interest rates are very low to get a mortgage as well. So that they've tried to keep the house market moving as much as possible. But I think that, and I don't want to be negative in any way, shape or form in this podcast, but in my opinion, I think unfortunately, engineering I think is going to be fine, so don't worry, all you engineers listening to this podcast. But I think in other sectors such as the high street, and there are going to be casualties, and when the furlough scheme ends, there's going to be a lot of redundancies, and unfortunately, in my opinion, I do believe that like the house prices, the cycles with the house prices, the cycle is the house prices at the minute are at the peak, and they're going to drop. In my opinion, I reckon it could be up to 20-25%.
Do you really see? I just don't think that in any way, shape or form. I just think that the housing market, there's too many people waiting to jump on it, and it all comes down to the supply and demand. And I just can't help but think to myself that the demand's always going to outweigh the supply, and I just think it will keep them where they are. But hey ho, who knows?
I know a lot of people that have actually, not just one. I know a lot of people that are probably more in the know than I am, that have actually sold their properties and got into rented accommodation, waiting for that kind of drop. But I think as well, with the house prices, like any other investment, it depends what you're. Is it a long-term investment? Because time will kind of, even out the dips and the peaks. But if it's a short-term investment, I would definitely hold fire for a little bit longer.
So I should stay in my tent a little bit longer then,
Definitely, Mr. Jones.
Napier, let's get back on track. Napier, you went there, didn't you, on Thursday?
This
Good
was
visit?
Absolutely fantastic visit. I used to go and visit companies up north. I don't want to make Cummings, they do turbochargers, but for cars, lorries, and they're quite small components. But going to Napier and looking at the turbochargers that they manufacture there for the marine industry and the power generation industry, these they were big. I was looking at some of the pictures on social media.
They
can weigh up to 1.5 ton. So wow. for a turbocharger and the componentry within the turbochargers, I learned so much about them. I think that the complexity and how it works, it's just absolutely brilliant. You've got the blisk at the back end, which is made out of an Inconel type material, 32 kind of Rockwell. Do
they machine that?
They machine that, and that is the kind of the exhaust end where they're pulling in the dirty air, and then it travels through. You've got the shaft, and then at the front end, you've got your impeller. So you also always see these impellers now on fifth axis machines, don't you? In demos, the little tiny impellers. But these impellers are big impellers, and they I'm sorry to go over.
They come out of a billet.
They come out of a solid casting. These impellers, and they are a black art to machine. So the impeller is a grade of a special grade of aluminium that's at the front end of the turbocharger. They've just invested in 2 new Grob machines to manufacture these. So a G350T and a G550T. So both full fifth axis simultaneous machines with turning capability. This is a company, you've got to bear in mind, this is a company that's got a niche market that supplies the whole world. No one really can make the kind of turbochargers that Napier make. They didn't need to go and improve their current process. They had a very stable process in place. But they've gone and invested or challenged Grob to kind of improve their process. And Grob have stepped up to the mark and implemented a new process on these new machine tools. And by having that turning capability on the fifth axis machine, the operation savings is massive, and the actual time saving is absolutely astronomical. But unfortunately, we can't actually say what it is. It's quite confidential. But the knock-on effects that it has through the company is astounding. So some people will buy a machine tool and just think, right, it's going to just reduce my cost per part by this. But what it's actually also done, it's reduced tooling costs, the longevity of the tools last a lot longer. It's reduced handling costs from having a component go from one machine to another. It's reduced setup time costs. It's reduced inspection costs, and it's also made their business more flexible because now they can just manufacture a part when they need it rather than to hold a lot of stock of these expensive parts.
Yeah, that comes into what we've talked about in other podcasts about lean manufacturing and stuff like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And probably a good point to suggest to people that are listening to this, if you've got a good story about making gains, making savings when you're manufacturing, solutions you've come across, then we'd obviously welcome the opportunity to come and visit you and really broadcast those positive messages across our channels. And also maybe comment on this if you're listening on LinkedIn now, comment on or on Facebook or whichever platform you're on, comment about maybe the equipment that you've got that you've found real benefits within. Quite interesting, G. You mentioned about the turbo sucking in dirt. You made me think of something a minute ago. I heard I was listening to Radio 2 the other day, and they do this factoid thing. I don't know whether you've heard it in the afternoon, Steve Wright in the afternoon. And they said, and one of the factoids was, how much dirt do you think the average person eats or consumes in their lifetime? What do you think? And it's true, because obviously you've got dust, you've got particles, you've got
in weight.
In weight, yeah.
Oh God. £2?
£12.
Wow.
The average person eats £12 worth of dirt in a year. Now that, and then what? Then you're starting to think, well, where does this dirt come from? Well, it comes from your hands when you maybe you've been doing the garden and you come in and eat. And I know you do it all the time. You do the garden and you come in and eat a sandwich and you've still got bits of dirt under your nails and all the rest of it, and dust particles. £12 of dirt. That's why we wear these masks now as well. Give some extra filter. Fascinating. I'm sure that video will be on our channels soon from Napier. Thursday, I was at Ashby Engineering, as I mentioned earlier, where they've got the Belium machine, a new Belium machine installed. Not only that, £1 million worth of investment in the last year, tapped into the government's incentives with the Seaballs scheme, using. They've also, looking at the new super deduction. For further investment as well. But some of the machines they bought, really, and I know you love this machine, and we all do, this MX 140 from Brother, the Speedio, with the turning. It's the X2, 2,000 RPM turning, 22 tools, I think it is, 1.4 seconds chip-to-chip time. And this part that he had there was from a CAT scan. And it was great, we could see it, and it basically comes out of a CAT scanner. And before they were making it, and it was about, I suppose about sort of probably 8 inches, it was square, 8 inches either side. And it was done previously on 5 machines. 5 machines. They used to take it from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And they used to have issues, as we always talk about, with maintaining the accuracies across the parts. Not only that, the damage that could be made to the part when it's being moved from machine to machine. And this MX 140 basically does all the turning, does all the grooving, all the milling, the thread milling, does the facing, it does everything. They do. They face off the back, do a couple of bits that need to do on the back of the part, turn it over, hold it, turn, bore, and the whole thing comes off basically in 2 operations. And they are now guaranteed accuracy. No issues with, surface finishes being scratched, marked, or anything along the way. And it's all done on this MX 140. Absolute brilliant.
Have they got the automation on it, Paul?
They haven't, but we talked about it yesterday. But a lot of what they're doing is, and I know I'm going to contradict myself here, because we talk about automation being for one-offs and shorter runs, and it is, and it does lend, especially with the vision system that you can get with the Fidio 2. But they really are a kind of, at the moment, doing quite low volumes. They don't quite know what's coming in from day to day. A lot of the parts that they're doing, they're kind of creating to go onto this machine they might not have seen before. So
it's prototype work as well.
Which is great to see a machine like this on that, and it's for security of process, really. And it's such a fast machine as well, and it was just brilliant to see one of these in the field. But I know White House Machine Tools are having tremendous success with the Speedio product. They really are. It
doesn't surprise me at all, Paul. Like you mentioned, it is one of my favourite machines that I've reviewed. I think that these engineers now are spoilt for choice, aren't they? And what kind of the turning speeds are astronomical, aren't they, on that machine, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, 2,000 RPM on that particular model, but there is an X3 now, which I think has got a bigger capacity, slightly different specifications. But really good to see one in the field. What he'd also purchased is new Herco machines. He'd bought also a new Nakamura with 3 turrets and 3, I think it's got 3 Y-axis or 2 Y, so I'm not 100% certain, but he bought a new Nakamura, new Herco, new Belia. All of this £1 million investment into a company which is really excelling.
Paul, do you think, you've been in machine tools a lot longer than me in regards to kind of the selling of them as well, but do you think now with this new technology coming out that where you've got turning and milling all built into one, this has got to be the future now, isn't it? I can see a real growth in that area, because, even if you were still just milling a part or you were just still turning a part, you've got the flexibility to do both, or you could do both on the same part, but it just opens up so much, doesn't it?
I do, but I'd also was at CNF Engineering, moved to an amazing new place in Aylesbury. I was there the week before last, I think it was, talking to Neil, who's full of Matsuura MAM machines. He's got the MX330 with a 10 the 10 pallet pull. He's got an MX520 with a 4 pallet pull, so 5-axis machines with automation. You go in there, every spindle's going, and he measures everything, his efficiencies. He needs to be cutting every hour of every day. He got rid of all of his VMCs over the last 5 years. He's changed the way his business is, and now he's thinking about buying a VMC, because you cannot. There are some parts that come through machine shops where you just need a vertical machining centre. And one of the things that he's found, and it was fascinating to hear him say, "What are you going to purchase next? What's your next investment?" Probably a VMC. I said, "Well, you just got rid of a load of VMCs." He said, "Yeah, I got rid of them, and I've realised that there is a need in a machine shop for vertical machining centres, because they're quite low cost, they're low hourly rates. You're not tying up a high value machine that's should be churning out whatever parts continuously." So he's basically said that he will buy it. So I agree, there is going to be this shift, and there is a shift towards automated processes, but I still think there's a big need for these more commodity style pieces of kit.
That's a really good point. I think it's a fantastic point that you've made there.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for that. So that was Ashby Engineering. Was a visit that I did. Those videos will be coming to the channel very soon. It really was. In fact, I had to cut it short. I had to cut that visit short because I'd sold. Also, we talked about fitness earlier. I'd sold a Stairmaster on eBay, and the guy rang me up and he said, "I'm an hour from your house. I need to come and pick it up." So I had to shoot away. But I know Lindsay stayed, and there is some really good material coming out of there. And then, of course, to conclude our week on Friday, we did some brilliant technical corners for Leader CNC, which will be coming on the channel as well. And of course, the technical corners are great ways to illustrate how technology is changing, aren't they?
Yeah, I absolutely love producing technical corners at MTD. They're one of my favourite pieces of content that we do myself, and I think that our audience appreciates them too, because I think that testimonials are absolutely brilliant and very necessary. But when people are coming on our site to kind of look to learn about their next investment, or look for potential new machinery, work holding, cutting tools, more and more we hear now, Paul, when we're on the road, that they're coming and looking at our technical corners on the website to learn and to find out about the technological advancements in these products and the capabilities of the products. And kind of, there's no better way really to illustrate them than an MTD technical corner.
And the machines we looked at was the Gruppus Parpus, the Shark, the Unica, and the Diamond Linear. So those technical corners coming to the channel soon. Next week, or this week I should say now really, with it being Monday tomorrow, just to give you a bite-sized chunk of what the team's up to this week. I'm at Manufacturing in Manchester tomorrow with Chloe, where they've purchased a Courier machine, and great business. Really looking forward to this. When we see these Courier machines, so universal now with the flexibility that their heads offer, big capabilities when it comes to larger components, castings, casings, all of those things. So I'm up at Manufacture tomorrow. Lindsay's at Colchester Machine Tools looking at a laser marking solution as well on Monday, which has now been automated, so it's being loaded for laser marking. How important is laser marking within the industry? Something we often overlook. We've also got visits to Monard Precision in Rugby, where I know they've recently installed a couple of new Doosan machines. And we can't forget we've got the Seco ITI live event, which we're hosting on Wednesday and Thursday next week. That will be a great watch to tune into. We've also got machine reviews at Dugard Machine Tools. We're heading down there to look at Schmeck and Kitamura machines, which are all available from stock, which, coming back to my original points earlier about stock being key at the moment, there's another example of a company that is carrying stock. And then on Thursday next week, I am personally at in Swindon with ETG at one of their customers that's just bought a Quasar machine with an automation cell. We're also out with Mitutoyo, and I know that you're also at GOM. What are you doing there?
Yeah, well, so they've just joined the MTD CNC platform, I'm glad to say. What a fantastic company. Some of the latest technology in metrology, and we're going to look at their Atos scan boxes. Now, when we look at, we've mentioned automation, but you don't, and metrology in general, in my opinion, is overlooked. We always think about buying machine tools, that's what's going to make money, and you go and buy an inspection piece of equipment. It's not really making you money, it's just a necessity. But that mindset needs to change. And I think that with GOM, a really kind of innovative company automating metrology with products such as the Atos scan box, it's going to be an educational video on their products to illustrate how you can automate inspection. So it's all good and well, buying these machine tools that we've just discussed to save, to reduce cycle times and reduce cost per parts, but it's no good if you've got a backlog because you can't inspect them quickly enough. But not only that, the complexity of components now has changed because of the new technologies that we've got and strategies that we've got to actually machine them. So again, we need that inspection to check them quickly. Probing is traditional probing, and tactile inspection is obviously very necessary for components that require very tight tolerances. But the lion's share of componentry that gets made out there, I'd say up to 95% of components that's out there, the tolerances are less than 0.1, which the scanning can do comfortably. That can measure to microns. So it's a different way. It's changing mindsets, Paul, and I can't wait.